welcome in to the Mad Monday podcast from the ACC, live and direct from the Export Beer Garden studios and brought to you as always by 4 and 20 Pies. My name is Tino Fa'asua Manaia and I am joined remotely by Tohu Hurley. G'day Hurley, how are you getting on?
Oh, look, I'm pretty good, man. I'm pretty good. It's been a weird weekend of blowouts in the NRL. I guess we're just getting to that part of the season.
Yeah, we're going to dive into that later as well. Just quickly up top, I want to get a bit of admin out of the way. All thanks to our great mates at 4 and 20 Pies. We've got 3 double passes to give away to the Wars vs Eagles this Friday at Go Hard Media Stadium. All you want to do if you want to win one of those double passes, text Manly. Text MANLY Manly to 3236 to get in the draw to take home a double pass for you and a mate. So get involved in that right now. I know you've got your phone on you if you're listening to this. But let's rip the Band-Aid off straight up the top and get straight into the Warriors beating the Tigers 30-22.
Barnett's through. He's draws. He passes. Gets it off to Metcalf. Metcalf comfortably dives in under the sticks. And a huge breakaway by Daly here. He's looking for support. Luke Brooks on the inside.
No.
I don't think we'll catch him. He stretches out. An ankle tap was tried, but he scores back-to-back tries. Johnson to take to a picky. And the man, DWZ, heads to the corner. Jazz Tavanga. Oh, he runs it hard again. He gets up within a metre of the line. It's on the second tackle. We've had huge amount of possession in the last 5 minutes. And Tohu goes over. A well-needed try for the Warriors. And he kicks it.
Put it over.
What it is, West Tigers, what's up? Let me know if you need a little love. Every Tiger boy needs a little hug. If you drop the ball, we're gonna pick it up the West, baby!
That's how it sounded on Saturday night. It was actually quite good to get a refresher from that because I was a little overserved on Saturday night. But Ben, you were in the commentary position. You saw every ball of it, presumably sober. What were your key takeaways from that game?
Well, weirdly, this was the closest game of the entire round, and it didn't really feel like that. It was another scrappy, niggly, grubby performance from a cellar dweller team. And let me just come off the back fence a little bit here. The last 2 weeks, I think teams are starting to realise how you get under the Warriors' skin, and it is grubby, and it is niggly, and it is lying all over the play of the ball. It is, starting to, get a little bit of anger out of the Warriors. And I think teams know that we get a bum deal with the refs a lot of the time. We saw that with Marata Niakore in the Titans game. You just niggle just enough, and there's a little lash out, and we pay the price. So I think that's what teams are going to do. That's what we're going to come up against for the rest of the competition. And do you know what? Here's what I'm going to say to all those teams out there. You listening, teams? We don't care. We'll win 6-0. We'll win 2-0. We'll win 1-0. We'll take a Shawnee J drop goal in the last minute after a basically 0-all draw. We don't care how we win. We'll just continue to win.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point that you raise, is that, people are saying, is it doomsday for the Warriors? They could barely hold off a cellar dweller in the West Tigers. But like you say, we won. So, what do you guys want from us? That's all we can do as a team, is beat the team that's in front of us. That's exactly what we did. But you're so right. That point about it's not the, when your mate's niggling you in class, and it's when you retaliate that the teacher kicks you out. That's exactly. Yeah. And we have that. We have players that respond to that kind of thing. Jazz Tavanga springs to mind. And as a team, we've been so. I guess the big turnaround that everyone's saying for the Warriors this year is how clinical we are. And you're so right about that point that, if it's not too hard to knock us out of that, I think. And that might be part of why we suck in the rain as well, because, once that stuff starts going a little bit sloppy, we start to lose our heads a little bit. Having said all that, again, I'd like to go back to my first point. We fucking won. So, you can trial these. Yeah, you can trial these different tactics. I thought we heard in the highlights there, Dane Laurie looked incredible on the weekend. He was carving us up. Whenever someone else made a half break, it was always him that was there. And I mentioned it to G Lane on the Daily Agenda podcast this morning. The Tigers, they made it hard on the Raiders last week as well. It's because they're a shit team that can fire shots. They can break you open when they want to. It's just not always there. Jareem Buller, as we mentioned, Dane Laurie, these guys. I don't know how much to read into this, though, in terms of the Warriors' run home. Like, do we? Is it panic stations, or are we just put another win on the board as we were supposed to?
Well, look, here's what I'm going to say. The NRL, as we all know, is there's no easy games. It's very little difference between Chahu and Boohoo, as we said on the commentary on Saturday.
Yeah.
And we've won 5 in a row. I don't think we want to go into the finals on a hot streak. The law of averages suggests if we win against Manly, and then who have we got after that?
Can't tell you. I'll look it up.
Whoever we've got after that, if we go in having won 8 on the trot, the law of averages suggests that we're going to lose that first game first up. And I don't want that to happen. I'd rather we dropped one against Manly, if I'm honest.
So we've got the Dragons the week after Manly, and then Dolphins to round it out.
Right. So we've got basically 2 teams in the bottom 4, and then we've got Manly this week, who are a mid-table wounder.
Yeah.
And I actually don't think it would be terrible if we dropped one. I don't think we're going to get into second place to get a home game first round of the finals. So it doesn't really matter if we finish 3rd or 4th.
And looking at the table, it would only be 3rd or 4th because the Storm are directly behind us. So if we lost one, they won one, they could bump us out of there. We'd still be in the top 4, and like you say, that's massive. Everyone that was interviewed after the game, Tohu Harris, Sean Johnson, Webster, anyone that mattered, were all saying that the issue that they had on Saturday night was just momentary lapses in defence. It wasn't there was no technical issues. There was no issues with, the game plan or how it was executed. It was just every now and then someone would just switch off, and then all of a sudden Dane Laurie's scooching through. Do you think it was a bit of apathy? Do you think they were a little bit disrespectful to the Tigers and just thought, these guys are baked to the bottom of the tin. What are they actually going to do? Or do you think that there's actually something going on there?
Now, I think it's pretty hard to get up for a game against the Tigers, if I'm honest. But I would put weather in there as a factor. We're not a good team in the wet. I didn't think it wasn't like it was a couple of months ago where it was an absolute mud bath out there, but it was definitely slippery, and there was obviously wind blowing because we saw a kickoff get blown back from the 10 metres, which is weird as. Yeah. So Di and I in the commentary box in the Export Beer Garden studio, we didn't kind of realise how bad the conditions were down there in the Tron. So I think that was a massive factor, but we definitely were clunky on attack. And 2 long-range tries, as you said. I think Dane Laurie involved in both of them.
Yeah.
That's very un-Warriors of 2023.
Yeah, 100% it is. It's also very Tigers, though, of them to just fire a shot from 90. And actually, we had conceded one of those last week against the Titans too, with Jaden Campbell running away. So maybe that's something that we need to keep an eye on because, Jason Saab's quite capable of scoring those as well. You mentioned it was played down in the Tron. I'm hearing reports that there were up to 4 streakers, which is 4 more than I thought we were going to see. I thought we did a great job of shaming everyone into not streaking anymore. Sorry, pitch invading. Only one of them managed to interrupt the game in any way that I saw at least. But otherwise, I thought the Tron looked great. FML Stadium looks like a rugby league stadium. They obviously have enough rugby league fans there to pack it out. Do we need to have more games in the Tron? Because I can't imagine it's a very inviting... could you imagine the Roosters playing there?
It's interesting, isn't it? There's often talked about where would be a second NRL franchise in New Zealand, and I think people are kind of scared of putting it in Wellington because of the Phoenix have their foothold there, and they don't get great numbers to their games, to be honest. I think maybe just based on the crowd numbers that Hamilton has put up, if there ever was a second NRL franchise out of New Zealand, it might be based in the Tron, and I think we should call it the Hamilton Herbals.
Presented by Herbal Ignite as well. Yeah, I don't mind that. Like I said, it was a good stadium. I was reading a story this morning talking about how the NRL has changed the rule in the last couple of years where if you have a home semi-final or home final at all, there has to be a minimum capacity of 25,000 seats. Now, Mount Smart technically is fewer than that. They round it up to 25,000, but they can actually only fit 24-something in there. So the yarn is that if the Warriors have a home semi or quarterfinal or whatever, it's going to have to be at Eden Park. They've checked the schedule, and the Auckland NPC team is scheduled to play on one of the weekends where one of our finals could be if we finish the season where we are. And they've moved their home game, the Auckland NPC team, out of Eden Park. So it seems to me like the wheels are in motion for the Warriors to play at Eden Park. How does that make you feel if we have our first home, I think it was like 2011, basically, since we've had a home semi-final. How would you feel about it being at Eden Park?
Well, not great, because we've never won there. Every time we've attempted to play a game at Eden Park, I don't know. I know that doesn't make any scientific sense. That we've just never won at a ground. So
it's off fun.
But we don't. I think Di had great stats on the weekend about how often we've won in New Zealand outside of Mount Smart, and I think on the weekend might have been the 10th ever win, and we've played something like 40 times outside of Mount Smart. So that's not a great hit rate.
But then what's our winning percentage overall as a club, like even at home?
Yeah, let's not go into that.
It just wouldn't look right. And I know it's the biggest stadium in the country. They say it's the country's stadium, but it's just awful, I think, Eden Park. It doesn't fit a cricket oval in there perfectly because it's not the right shape for it. But then also a rugby field, you're sitting so far back from the sideline. What was it designed for? What was Eden Park's purpose when they built it?
Well, that's the thing. It has no overall design. It looks like it's been designed by a committee that aren't talking to each other. So everyone just got to do a bit themselves.
Yeah, it's like Milton down south, where apparently the highway through Milton was built from different ends. So one coming from Chicago, one from Dunedin, and they missed each other. So there's a kink in the middle of the road down there in Milton.
To be fair, that's the only interesting drive between Christchurch and Timaru is that bend in Milton.
No, it's further south than Timaru. That's
is it?
Yeah, it's between Dunedin and Invercargill. That's why they put the Milton Hilton, the prison down there.
Oh, what's the one? There's the same deal in between Timaru and Christchurch, I'm sure. And there's a kink in the road, isn't it? Where's the pottery place?
Temuka. Oh, yeah. There's a wee kink in Temuka.
Yes, Temuka. Sorry, I was getting mixed up.
That's because they had to route State Highway 1 around the back of the New World when they put it in there, because it used to go straight up the guts. That's why the kink's in there.
Okay, your knowledge of South Island state highways eclipses mine, and I stand corrected.
Yeah, only Jeremy Wells can hold a candle to my knowledge of minor highways around New Zealand. But I digress. Look, the Warriors, say what you like about that win, and I don't really know how much to read into it. Obviously, the guys weren't too happy. Di said on the commentary, no smiles when they were walking off the field. But we took away a win. There's no photos on the scorecard, as any awful golfer will tell you. And no one will ever remember the way that game was played. Only that we won it, that the run continues. And so, yeah, I reckon we can put that one to bed and get ready for the stonker of the round. But looking at the scores, to be honest, there weren't really any stonkers. Let me read you some of the scores. 36-6, 54-10, 26-14, 30-14, and a couple of absolute blowouts yesterday, 48-2 and 42-6. There was no... If you were going to call one game a stonker, it was probably ours. But I would say, being that we've reached the point in the season, and this happens every year, where the teams that are out of contention are so far out of contention, I wouldn't say that the players don't give a fuck, but certainly the clubs don't. They're not playing their strongest sides out there. And also, if it's like a 50-50 ball that you're going for, and you can't make the 8, like, your motivation to do that is awful. And I know this because the Warriors are in that every time this last doldrums of the season comes around. Do you think that we're just in that end of the season where we're just going to see blowouts from here on in?
Well, look, in every NRL season, there's always 2 rounds that you can count on. One is where nothing makes sense, and there's probably 4 or 5 upsets. Yeah. And then there's this round where teams are very clearly in a top 4, bottom 4. Although, having said that, 4 played 5, and there was 46 points difference between the Storm and the Raiders. I was really looking forward to that game, an afternoon game, early game, I sat down on the couch with a couple of Asahis and obviously exports.
Yes.
Yes, of course. Yeah, we'll just do a little bit of editing around there.
Yeah.
And then it was an absolute debacle, and the Raiders had a shocker. And Ricky Stewart, I've never ever seen a man look so dejected at the press conference afterwards, even by his standards.
No, and I love that. But I just also I like the way that he looked for us, because they are 5th on the table. And if they can just really, because I feel like the way Ricky Stewart coaches, I feel like that works for a front-running team. You know, if you're world beaters and you're going through and smashing everyone, that's great, because he'll motivate you, give you that extra 10%. When you're starting to suck, and then the coach is putting the boot in, which he does after every game, it's only going to negatively affect you. So they're going to keep sliding down the rankings. He was saying, we're a team that's got aspirations of being in the top 4. It didn't fucking look like it out there on the field and blah, blah, blah. I love watching that from Ricky Stewart. He wasn't answering anyone's questions either in that press conference. God, it'd be a nightmare to be in there with him. So, yeah, I don't know. No stonkers.
No stonkers.
And it's
no stonkers. And can I just make another point? There's also another group at this time of year, which are the sliders. The groups, the teams that looked like early in the season that they were there for all money, and now are just sliding down the table. And I'd put the Rabbits, even though they won on the weekend, the Eels, and again, even though they won on the weekend, the Roosters are just sliding down that table and they're going to be scrapping it out for 8th spot, I reckon.
Yeah, 100%.
Not guilty, Your Honour.
Yeah, what are you getting the ref's room number, mate?
Well, let's get on to the top 8 then. At the start of the year, the TAB was running a promotion, and it was basically just pick the top 8. And it was in a particular order, but I haven't got the order in front of me. I do have the top 8 teams that we picked at the start of the season, and so I'd like to compare them with the table as it stands by way of a prediction for who we think is going to make the top 8. We had the Broncos, the Sharks, the Storm, the Warriors, which I don't know that any of us particularly believed in at the time when we placed that there. The Eels, Panthers, Bunnies, and Roosters. So the only 2 that we got wrong, or have wrong so far, are the Eels and the Roosters. We didn't have the Knights or the Raiders being in there. So as it stands, that's where the top 8 is now. Do you see any? I mean, the Raiders just vaulted themselves into the top 8. Sorry, not the Raiders, the Knights, and they've been looking excellent. The Cowboys were sort of knocking on the door, but I feel like they've come off the boil a fraction. As it stands, I don't know if you've got the table in front of you, but do you see much movement from where it is at the moment? The top 4 seem locked in. The top 2 certainly locked in that order, I think. What do you see as the biggest change between now and finals?
I think it's probably 8th. I think the Knights look really good, and because they've got that extra point because they had that draw, they're always going to be by themselves, which is a weird mathematical thing that happens. But they're never going to be up against on point stuff, are they?
No.
So I see them finishing 6th or 7th. I think the Raiders might slide another spot. So it is really out of probably the Cowboys and the Rabbits. I don't see the Eels doing anything. I don't see the Roosters coming up. I think Manly are probably a mathematical chance, but if they lose to us in the weekend, then they're gone. So it's probably out of Bunnies and Cowboys for that 8th spot.
That's a good point that you raise, actually, with Manly, because they're on 25 points. If they win this week, they still need to win the week after, but they could mathematically get in, as you mentioned. Are we going to start seeing like the best of these teams as they come along? I mean, to be fair, the Dolphins and the Dragons can't make the 8, but are they going to start firing shots at the Warriors as we start coming up against these minnow teams? And
I don't know. I think traditionally we never have a great end to the regular season, the Warriors, but this year is puts all old things on the fire. Yeah, this is a new team. So that's an interesting one. I think we're definitely just in banana skin territory here. But as I said to you, I don't mind dropping one just for the law of averages. I'd sort of circle the Dolphins. I think I don't want to lose against the Seagulls. I don't know why, but I just can't stand them. Fair enough. I know that there are a lot of Kiwi teams, sort of like Kiwi people's second team. It's
we had a lot of
I think
Kiwis.
they used to be. They used to be because back in the 90s, of course, they had Matthew Ridge and that. There used to be a lot of Manly jerseys around.
Yeah.
But no, not so much anymore.
I think for me, the only change that I would see is potentially, I mean, the Eels sitting in at 10th. Mitchell Moses just broke his entire face, so we won't see him again.
Yeah, he's gone.
I think we can just about put a line through the Eels. Cowboys, I think, still have a couple of shots left to fire. As it stands, they're tied with the Rabbitohs, so who knows what way that could go. I just don't like ruling the Rabbitohs out. They're just always in there. They'll limp into the 8th and then make the final.
Sorry, they of course they didn't win on the weekend.
Yeah.
Or did they? They beat the Dragons. Yeah, but again, a scrappy win. Their last couple of weeks have been quite similar to the Warriors. They're not winning like they were. I mean, I think about round 12, we were saying, they're the premiership favourites.
Yeah.
And it was almost like we put the kibosh on it. Like from that moment, they've started to suck.
Yeah, 100%. But they're still one of those teams that can run up massive scores when everyone's healthy. Latrell's back. And they're still a team that, I wouldn't feel real good about coming up against. The Eels have had such a topsy-turvy season, and like I said, I think you can just about put a line through that. You mentioned round 12 just then, and I think that's interesting because I wanted to talk to you about Daly M. There's been a lot of noise. All the reporters have been asking Sean Johnson about what he thinks of Daly M at the moment, and obviously he's going to play it down. He doesn't want to talk about it, but how it works, if you're not familiar, is it's a 3-2-1 system. Every game, a player from each team is awarded 3 points, 2 points, 1 point based on how well they played. And the stats, the numbers are made public up until round 12, after which they go behind closed doors. So that was, half a comp ago now. And when they went behind closed doors, Payne Haas was leading on 30 points. You then had Cleary, Grant, Hines, Welsh, Mitchell, Hunt, Walker, Edwards, and Johnson was rounding out the top 10. Now, he was only 8 points behind Payne Haas. The guys in between them, when you think about Latrell Mitchell's been out, Ben Hunt's team absolutely sucks. Cody Walker's sort of been a bit hit and miss. Nathan Cleary missed a lot of time. Are you starting to believe that Sean Johnson could win a Daly M? I mean, could you say, I said on the podcast this morning, I think that Nathan Cleary probably is still the best player in the comp, but he's been gone for so long. Who could you really put ahead of Sean Johnson in the Daly M voting?
No one. I think he's an absolute certainty if he can stay fit. And we haven't really talked about his quad. He didn't kick in the weekend. And I don't know what can be done in terms of medical science. What we can contribute as Warriors fans. Do I have stem cells? Can they just take stem cells out of me and put them in there? I don't even know what stem cells are, but they sound healthy. They sound like something that might help. I will literally do anything to keep that quad nice and limber and, not painful for the future Daly M of 2023.
I mean, the headline was saying I was better than them bagging me. He was saying how last year everyone was talking about Sean Johnson should retire. His best days are behind him. So it is good to see him playing with free and easy like that. And I interviewed Roger Tuivasa-Sheck allegedly, but the interview's never seen the light of day. But he said the main turnaround is that Sean Johnson's making babies on the sideline, and that's a key indicator of how he's travelling. You're right about the quad thing. He said it was fine. It was just that he didn't like kicking on it. So, look, if the worst thing is that Adam Pompey's going to be kicking for the next few weeks, so be it. Leave the quad off. Could we get him off to Waisake Naholo's doctor when he broke his leg and then was back about 4 days later? That'd be done.
Yeah, whatever it can take.
Yeah.
And whatever it takes. I mean, there's been many years of the Warriors when, Shawnee J's broken down and that's been the end of the season. I think it would be very challenging without him now.
Yeah.
But how far away is Tamari Martin?
Well, this is the thing. He passed his due by date, where they said, all right, you should be allowed to play here. And then he was basically, I don't know, these stories have come out. It's been quite squirrely about, it's indefinite now. We're not going to rush him back. I wonder if part of it is that Luke Metcalf has been so good that it's like, well, let's not risk Tamari Martin's leg. Like, if he was 100%, would you put him back in there? Like, would you drop Metcalf for him?
Not after last week. I thought Luke Metcalf was our best back by some margin. Like he was the only back looking likely to break the line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. It just seems a little bit squirrely. I saw an interview with Tamari Martin the other day that the Warriors put out themselves, and it was all talking about life after footy and how he knows more than anyone how quickly it can be sort of taken away, so he's just enjoying it. But I thought that was a pretty, I don't know, it was a pretty D-buzz interview to put out when a guy's out with injury and has a guy playing in his position that, I don't know, I kind of feels like everyone, I wouldn't say prefers, but he's done a good enough job that no one's like freaking out about it. I really don't know where he fits next year with Chanel Harris-Tavita back, all these dudes back. It's, again, it's a good problem to have that we can't fit Tamari Martin back in because, you know, in years gone by, we would have been screaming to just throw him back in there. You're right, though.
I guess we are going to lose. We'll certainly lose someone from that back line. I don't know who it is, but we won't have this exact same back line as this year, surely.
No. I don't know how the salary cap ramifications of everything work. But just to put a bow on that, I think Sean Johnson, the only person who would have a challenge to that would be Payne Haas. But I just don't. I feel like he would have been overshadowed in a few different games by players on his own team. Reece Walsh, Adam Reynolds, Ezra Mann would have snaked a few points off him, whereas Sean Johnson every week has been consistently the Warriors' best player. Maybe Adam Fanua-Blake if you want to throw him in there, who's also injured. I got to say, I think that he might be the second one in my living memory to win a Daly M. Did Stacey ever win one? I don't think so. Was Roger the first one to win a Daly M?
I believe Roger was the first to win it, yeah. And that was a year where he was so far ahead of the rest of the team that, you know, he just took the 3 points every week.
Yeah.
Whereas this is a team that's performing well. Is Adam Fanua-Blake, is he out for this week?
I haven't seen, and this is part of the problem of releasing a podcast before the teams are named tomorrow afternoon. He was limping off. I don't know. He's one of those dudes who, like, he'll get hit, he'll be limping, then all of a sudden he's fine and he runs another 100 metres and then you find out he's injured, but then he plays anyway.
And then there's Wigan as well.
Yes.
I don't know. Wigan seems to go down every, few weeks for a couple of weeks.
Well,
and he didn't pass his HIA, so that might be the 11-day stand down.
Was it an HIA? Because there was a bit of a throat concern that he got hit in the old gizzard there. So with any luck, it's only that.
I'm just reading here. Sideline reports suggest Egan struggled to pass his concussion test, but only because he couldn't answer the questions because of his damaged throat.
Well, there we go.
So they've said, what day of the week is it? And he's gone, and they've gone, it must be his head.
if he can't answer it. Well, that's like when props pass HIAs, because how an HIA works is they ask you a set of questions when you're not concussed and ask you again after you've had a head knock. And a lot of props are so dumb that they can't answer the questions when they're fine. So they actually get to play on when they it's a loophole. It's an HIA loophole. So with any luck, Wigan will be fine. If that was a couple of inches higher, it would have knocked them clean out, I reckon. And that would have just about been his season. The Warriors are saying that Chance, despite having his third head knock, they still fully intend to name him for this week. I thought Tane Tuapiki did a good job. I know we were talking a lot about what is Chance being out going to have on Dallin, because that's sort of the method to him scoring all those tries. But I thought Tane looked fine back there. He didn't really make any errors or anything.
Not guilty, Your Honour.
Yeah, what are you getting the ref's room number, mate?
No errors, and he was probably the second most likely back to break the line. He definitely was difficult to put down at times. He probably doesn't necessarily have the same structural play as Chance or a more experienced player.
I want to move on to a bit of a conspiracy theory here, if I could. And I've got quite a few of these. This maybe should be a regular recurring segment. But I saw a quote from Adam Dewey, who is still a contracted member of the West Tigers. I don't know if you remember that, but he's done I think he's blown 3 knees out, and he is out for about another year. And he was complaining about a few of the calls going against the Tigers. And I read this quote and I was like, oh yeah, we usually do that. We usually spend the entire year bitching and moaning about the refs, how they hate New Zealand. I haven't heard any whinging about the refs from Warriors fans for about 10 weeks, I would say. In fact, maybe even longer. I know the first sort of 4 to 6 weeks, there was still a bit of it. I certainly came on various podcasts and bitched and moaned about the refs. But at least in the last 5 weeks, I don't think I've heard a single Warriors fan complain about the refs. And my conspiracy theory is, are the Warriors actually not hard done by the refs? It's just that we sucked. And now that we're kicking ass, we don't think about the refs at all. Because it doesn't matter what calls go against us, we're still going to win these games.
I think there's some truth in that. I think the standard of refereeing in the NRL for such a high-quality competition is pretty poor.
Yeah.
The amount of calls they get wrong and the bunker, like how many calls they get wrong in every game is pretty atrocious. And I think maybe the Warriors have gone, let's never put it in the hands of the refs, because it's not that I don't think there's a vendetta against the Warriors. I just think the standard is poor and we've probably got the bad rub of the green quite a lot.
Yeah, that's right. When they're making bad decisions, you're playing shit rugby league. It's a recipe for disaster for Warriors fans. It's sort of a blessing and a curse the way the NRL's officiated. It's entirely reffed off vibe, and in one sense that's great because when someone drops the ball, it's immediately called a knock on, despite the fact that it may have gone straight down or even marginally backwards. But the vibe is you fucked it up, so it's going to be the other guy's ball. And that's something that I think we love about rugby league until it goes against your team. And that's probably what the Warriors faithful have been feeling for the last few years. Now watch me completely do a 180 next year when we start off slow and the refs are entirely against us. But we've got plenty of rugby league between now and then. We have the Eagles this week. Myself and Tony Sweet Little Lau, are going to be commentating that one at 8 o'clock this Friday night. It is at Mount Smart Stadium. As we mentioned before, we got 3 tickets to go and see that, all thanks to 4 and 20 Pies. Text Manly if you want to go and see that to 3236. What are your predictions for this game this weekend, Ben?
Well, I think it entirely depends on the weather. I've not looked at the Met Service app, this far out. But basically, I think if it's going to be wet, I think we might struggle. And if it's going to be dry, I think we're going to absolutely smash them and we're going to click for the first time in a few weeks.
Yeah, I'm looking at the forecast now. Some showers in the afternoon, but by the time that the game's on, it's actually going to be clear.
Okay.
We're going to be clear from about 5 o'clock through to like 10 o'clock. So I think this could be conducive to a bit of running rugby.
Warriors by 22. Yeah.
All right, we'll have to chuck some money on that when the odds come out down the track. But I reckon that'll just about do us for today. Hurley, just quickly though, all thanks to Trade Staff. Congratulations to Daniel Morgan, who took home a bloody good day's pay. Thanks to Trade Staff. If you want to do just the same, for your chance to take home a day's pay, look out for the Trade Staff banner during the next rugby league game. Make note of when the banner was on screen, comment the time on our socials, and you'll be in the draw to win $400, which apparently is a day's pay. I want that kind of job because I'm certainly not on that kind of wicket here. But Hurley, enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the Warriors this Friday night, and let's go finals.
Yeah, and look, just keep them coming at me every time I'm walking around the streets, wherever I am. I just hear up the wires all the time. I had a little 9-year-old kid just come up to me, go up the wires. It just warms my heart and it makes me proud to be a Warriors fan.
A bit of street munna, up the wires.
So much street munna. Yeah, keep it coming. Have a great week and let's go against Manly.